going to be rough on me because I just like to record our session here and post it instead of.
Oh, you can hear me double talk too?
Yeah.
I'm hearing a little bit of double for you, Sam, but I mean, I can get it. But
let me figure this out. Hold on. How about now?
Test.
Nope. Still echoing.
Still?
Miz, is it coming through your mic? Through your
microphone? Hold on. Let me turn my mic off and you guys test it.
Test.
Nope.
I'm still getting echo.
Same thing. Still some echo.
So you're getting an echo because there's probably two things pulling. Do you have your computer on in there so you can see us?
Oh, you know what? That's exactly what it is. Now try talking.
Test.
There you go.
Yep.
Seth Fisher. Who? I mean, not only
radio
is he a
engineer
man
on top of it.
letters,
My guy.
This is
Not
the
only
first
does he
time
know
using
football.
StreamYard with all of us in with Sam in studio. I'm used to Sam being at the web studio and me being back here. I'm not used to this. This is new for me.
Yeah. Now, so, hey, man, I called you this week, Seth, and I missed you. I called you for two reasons. Number one, I didn't know if I had missed your deadline.
Oh, yeah.
I assume I did.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about that.
The second thing is I had a content item for you that I was going to send to you. I didn't know if you could use it or not.
Yeah.
But we have that entire Behe interview.
Oh, yeah.
That entire John Behe interview, and it's already transcribed. I don't know if you've already gone to print.
For the book? Yeah, we're going to print today.
Okay.
So I got a Behe article in the book.
Okay.
Yeah, but what about for MGoBlog? It might be useful. I mean, John would be
I'd love to publish it on MGoBlog. Yeah, I've been meaning to call John anyway. I've been embarrassed that the book's not out yet.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you for sure. We had planned on getting to it, and then I got derailed. So I want to send you something. I'll definitely send you that.
Yeah, no, don't worry. I was fine. I had a guy who was like asking if he could be part of the roundtable, and I was like, all right, man, if Sam doesn't come in, I'll use you, and if he doesn't, then I'll put you in the digital edition. So I got him in. We had room for one more question at the end, so I did get the which jersey are you buying question in there.
Gotcha.
All right, gentlemen, we are about to
I'll email it to you as soon as we're done with the show.
All right.
It's long.
I like long. Craig Roast wrote something for me. I asked him to give me an excerpt from the Block Destruction Bible. And so he wrote like a thing that like takes like 30 seconds to read in a video. And I'm like, nope, not going to do it.
All right, guys, stand by. First off, hello, everyone watching on Ticket TV. Secondly, we go live on radio here in 5, 4, 3.
And welcome back, folks, to the Michigan Insider Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTK.com. Sam Webb, Mr. Matt the Miz Mizler on the other side, doing a fantastic job, as he always does, filling in for a vacationing Ira Weintraub, who Ira will be back in a couple of, not next week, but the week after.
Yep, we get week of the 16th when you go out of town.
When I go out, right. But it gives us an opportunity to hang, and Miz is an outstanding co-host. He's an outstanding producer as well. Every now and then, though, you get an assist. You need an assist too, right, Miz?
Every so often, I forget and I slip up, but every so often I get the help from a great friend, and Seth Fisher helped me figure out why I was getting double audio. So Seth, thank you so much for that assistant there.
Let's talk about all of Seth Fisher's hats. He's the man next to the man at MGoBlog. He should be the chief advisor to Kevin Warren in the Big Ten. Came up with a brilliant piece of advice there. He's also an engineer. He's also a radio engineer, because we're sitting here trying to figure out, why is there an echo coming through on our feed here? And he says, well, hey, you know what? You got your mic on over there. You need to turn off your screen. And if you do that, then the echo will go away. And boom, Seth Fisher fixed it. Seth, how you doing this morning?
Well, if you remember, Sam,
He's also a comedian too.
Yeah, can't forget that.
yeah. When we did that John Bacon thing, I had to fix the radio guy's audio there too, right?
You
It's not a new thing
And I
for
was
me.
not responsible for that one. So
Right, right. So we got Seth Fisher in the building. We also have Craig Ross, the venerable Craig Ross. How are you doing this morning, Craig?
I'm doing fine, Sam. How are you?
I'm doing great, fellas. Happy to see you, and really, really interested in both of your takes on Terrace Reed. Terrace Reed is set to announce his decision later today. Played the interview with his high school coach / AAU coach, who sort of broke down his game, gave his perspective on what the fit would be like. And also he recapped his Michigan recruitment, which started in May. So think about that. You got other schools more entrenched in this recruitment. Michigan State, Purdue, Ohio State. There were some others, but those are the primary combatants. And here you have Michigan poised to maybe swoop in and steal them from all of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's the primary thing for me on this is it's remarkable that Juwan could come in this late in the game and be a serious player to the point where you and some others think Michigan right now is more than a plausible destination for the kid. And a part of it is when Juwan was first hired a couple of years ago, someone asked me about him because I had met him previously. And I said, the thing that comes across is he's just a mensch. He's just a genuine person. And this genuineness comes across right away. And I think that's what his coach, is that his dad too, that you interviewed, who's also
no. It's just his AAU coach and high
AAU
school
coach.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's what the coach said too, that is that how Juwan comes across as a genuine person. He's not, when he tells you something, it's real, and it's not something that is with an ulterior motive. He genuinely is interested in other people, and it comes across right away. So it's stunning that he could get into a kid who's this good, probably a top 50 kid, this quickly, but it's stunning on one sense, but in another sense, it's not at all. So,
Seth, what do you think of Terrace Reed?
I mean, my question is, did people soften on him, or is like Michigan moving in and taking away?
No. Then not with the summer he had.
Okay.
Nothing gets soft on him.
I was talking to my state buddy, and his feeling was that Michigan State was like, we measured him. He's not really 7 feet. He's more like 6'9". He thought he had a shot outside. He doesn't. Izzo didn't really care. So I was wondering, because I know that's kind of what's coming from that side. If that was the truth.
You know what? If that's the way they feel, cool. He had a great spring and summer, and there's no sign or signal. And there was some thought that maybe Ohio State, because they picked up his teammate, his AU teammate, who's also a big guy, that maybe that would remove them from the equation. But I mean, the talk that I heard was that Ohio State was willing to take a couple of bigs. So my sense is that none of them have pulled off. Maybe they realized how it was trending and their attention started turning as a result of that, but it certainly wasn't a result of his play. So if Michigan gets him, and this is another one of those guys, I just got to mention, I've learned so much on this show. A couple of years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago now, I think Papa Weintraub called me a mensch. I didn't know what the hell that was. but now I do. So you said, it's like, okay, I know it. I'm picking up what Craig is putting down there. But if they get this guy, he'll be a top 50 dude at least. I don't know what his ultimate landing spot will be. I just know he'll move up based on talking to our analysts who love his summer performance. So
yeah, the guy I talk to most is Matt from Endless Motor, because he goes and scouts these guys.
I saw Matt at the NBA Players Association camp last week.
Yeah, he mentioned that. He said that he loves this pickup because Michigan is going after some guys who can stick around with the program a little longer than 1 year. Because, you bring in a big, he flashes for a season, then goes to the NBA. You only got 1 year, and then you got to go back and recruit again. And he thinks that the way that Michigan's setting up in their front court, that they can give him a year, and then Reed will probably be around for another 3 seasons, where you can get him starting, knowing the system, and he makes plays for other guys. He could probably develop a shot outside a little bit. Probably not the same kind of rim protector that Dickinson is, but yeah. But I mean, you're gonna get a guy who, Michigan. How often we wanted just like a solid big, right? And we've gone up against so many of these kinds of guys before, and it's I don't know. I like how Juwan's building this program. I like that not everybody is a one and done, and I like that it still is getting that high level talent. So when the guys are on the court, you're getting people who, it's how they built like Villanova, right? It's like how they build those championship teams.
Yeah.
As long as you're talking basketball recruiting, I saw yesterday or maybe the day before that Imani Bates is moving up to a 2021, which means somehow at that Ipsy Prep, he managed to get 2 years in 1 year. And because he's going to college, it looks like. And what the article I saw had him at Memphis, Oregon, or Michigan State. So is Michigan State back in the mix? Is this a plain old who's offering the most money? I mean, or
you know what, this is the scenario by which him going to college. This is always the scenario where him going to college would make sense, where he could have endorsement deals, right, with NIL. So it could happen. I've heard a lot of Memphis, or seen a lot of Memphis smoke with him lately. There has also been some talk about, maybe pairing up with a Jalen Duren somewhere. You can't shake the G League talk either. I think that he'll be in the position to maybe negotiate a G League compensation in excess of what we have heard about for the first round of G League Ignite guys. So I really don't know. I say all that to say I really don't know. I'm not ready to 100% say he'll go to college, but I'm also not ready to say that he's guaranteed to go to the G League like I was before NIL. NIL opens the door. I just don't know that it opens the door for Michigan State. When that thing came apart, is he really going to go to school with Jay Nakins?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question because they didn't seem to be exactly soulmates.
Right.
So that certainly seems like a salient thing to ask. I mean, as long as we're at it, do you guys think NIL will eventually help Michigan? When this first came down, my thinking was like everybody else, that certain schools, Northwestern, maybe Vanderbilt, Stanford, UCLA, Michigan, might have some edge here because of the nature of the alumni, the wealth of the alumni. But, right away you had Nick Saban, who's a smart guy at the very least, jumping in and saying, hey, wait a minute, our quarterback has got $1 million and this guy hasn't even started a game yet. And so and from the writing on point, I see Michigan doing this sort of sophisticated long-term planning presentation. What I would say essentially, Coltrane or Joe Jackson, and Saban jumping on the bus right away, telling recruits, hey, old Jed's a millionaire. Come to Alabama because the money is right here and up front. We're not talking any sort of long-term or lifetime perspective. We're talking about money for nothing right now.
So when you say hurt, you mean hurt relatively speaking. Other teams are taking advantage of it while Michigan is not maximizing the opportunity.
Michigan is playing their same game, which is a smart, logical, sophisticated game.
Yeah, I wonder what you think. Before I get my answer, I wonder what you think, Seth. What do you think?
Yeah, so again, First of all, I and the IRS would love to see this $1 million that Jed's got right now. Saban can say whatever he wants to, but I mean, I'm sure the guy is not walking around with $1 million in his pocket just now. Okay, so he's just going out there and saying, which is smart. That's very smart.
Right, it is smart.
Michigan is indeed slow to get off the block here. Michigan is going to get off the block. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to keep hammering this. There's NIL and there's NILB or whatever, or NIL2 or whatever you want to call it. There's NIL where like people are talking, oh my God, these guys are going to get endorsements. That's not where the money's coming from. Those endorsements are pennies, okay? The money is coming from boosters the same way it's always come from. It's just they're going to legalize it. Why is Alabama so good at this all of a sudden? Because they had their whole system set up. Is anybody Alabama? Oh my God! How do they know how to pay players so well, so quick? My mind is blown. Why is Michigan having such a hard time getting this going? Oh my God, my mind is blown. Why is this system like this? Oh my, was there gambling in this establishment? Come on.
I hear you. Look, for me, I think it has to do with pushing, not wanting to toe the line or push boundaries, which is how Michigan has been, right? Certainly since the Fab Five era, where things have been, don't even get close to the line. And don't even leave it subject to interpretation. What makes this different, in my opinion, is whatever your ideals are, whatever your values are, if you try to use the NCAA and their ideals as a basis for them, I think it's going to tether you. And here's what I mean by that. This notion that in the past, compensation for players was somehow it would call into question the purity of the sport. That was always a facade. It was always a ridiculous tether to keep student athletes in a box. I've often talked about the genesis of amateurism. This whole idea of participating in sports and not getting paid was not about character. It was about classism. It was about keeping the lower class out of the sport, maintaining it for the elites, because who in the common Joe framework could afford not to get their paycheck to go play a sport? So it would keep the sport sort of filtered for the rich. That was the basis of amateurism. And so it has morphed, it has changed and turned into it's a sign of character if you're willing to forego being paid right now and taking this money right now and get it later. The problem with the whole construct was, well, guess who started getting paid like they were pros? Coaches and administrators. Blew the whole model up. So I call all that to the floor to say, if you're Michigan and you're looking at what is right, what is pure, what is the proper way to be in intercollegiate athletics, I think the NCAA's vision for that was warped from the beginning. So the boundaries that you're pushing are the ones that you create. If you feel like there are opportunities for your student athletes because of your vast alumni network that they can take advantage of, bring that to the fore. I said this on the last show. I'm bringing Paige. I'm bringing Stephen Ross. I'm bringing all of the big money donors to the fore. But to your point, Seth or Craig, I don't know which one of you said something about the local opportunities that student athletes would have. That NIL fair that I was talking about, you're bringing all the big wigs, but you're bringing Mr. Spots in, right? You're bringing Brighton Ford in. You're bringing them all in, bring them all down and have that NIL fair. I'm pushing lines that I create. What do you think NIL should be? What do you think compensation for a student athlete should be? Don't use the NCAA standard. Again, NCAA is saying make your own rules anyway.
Right.
So make your own rules.
Yeah, the NCAA is saying make your own rules, and they're also saying we ain't enforcing anything.
We aren't enforcing anything. And they weren't enforcing anything before. I mean, didn't you just say last week, Seth, Will Wade has a job?
Yeah.
and it's not going anywhere. No one's saying anything. No one's saying anything to it. It's like this common thing. He was in the draft room last week, right? With what's my man who got drafted by the Brooklyn Nets at the end of the day? He was in the room. Hey, coach of LSU, hanging out. You know, what's that guy's name that got drafted by the Nets? Miz from LSU. Name will come to me. Scoring machine.
The guy we just watched.
Yeah, the guy we just
my
watched.
brain is so taken by Hail of the Victors right now that I'm just.
I hear you, man. But hey, you know what? Will Wade taught him a lot of lessons. He negotiated his first contract with Will Wade.
You talking Thomas?
LSU. Yes, negotiated his first contract with Will Wade. Right, and so now he's well prepared to negotiate. Have his contract negotiated with the Brooklyn Nets. Point being, man, the NCAA hasn't been about rules and enforcement. And they've never been about the purity of the sport. The purity of the sport never should be measured by whether or not you receive compensation anyway. That being the case, man, blaze the trail yourself. Push the line yourself. This is a way to legally compete. I get your point, Craig. To a certain extent, I agree, because you have these other places willing to push the limits, willing to be out front and aggressive with it. I think eventually Michigan will be, eventually they'll be putting out front some of the things that we see, some of the things they're doing behind the scenes, put it that way, with, talking about their NIL presentation and, talking to kids about the opportunities. I think they will be more out front with, hey, we're bringing our big money people to the fore. We're bringing business opportunities to the table, not maybe facilitating the deals, but allowing for the relationships the connections to be made. Michigan can be that nexus, if you will, in ways that we haven't seen them do overtly, at least in our view so far. Other schools are doing that, clearly. I mean, Miami booster comes out, I'm paying everyone $6,000. Everyone gets $6,000. That is what you do right now. That is what you do right now, in my opinion.
And Michigan's going to get there. I still have confidence. I've spoken to a couple of people. Michigan has football alumni who were playing. The guys who played get it, right? The guys who people around the program sometimes don't understand it. But the guys who played understand.
Yeah.
And you don't need the program involved to do it. Right, you just got to start to talking to some of these boosters and be like, "Hey, we're going to do this thing on the side."
I think you have to calibrate your moral compass. It was, and understand that it was warped through. It's not your fault. It's not Michigan's fault that the NCAA had this model that assigned this sort of character aspersion, or cast this character aspersion at the mere notion that you should be compensated. And for generations, these colleges have bought into that. And that has always been wrong. I think just the quicker they can shed that idea, the better off I think they will be when it comes to competing with the schools that just flat cheat. Like, I don't think Michigan will ever be in the business of, hey, we're just going to flat out Wild Wild West, where anything goes. Drop off money bags at Schembechler Hall, right?
I don't care about the money bags. The only problem is the only thing that Michigan won't do that I know some Southern schools do is dirty money, right? Mm-hmm. They let some of their guys launder money, that they do some bunch of cash jobs, and then they go tax free, and they got to do something with all this cash that they got in their pocket, so they give it to players. That kind of thing, I don't think Michigan is going to have any part of, and Georgia is going to be defined by it. Mm-hmm. That's the only real difference. Michigan, I disagree with you on one thing. And Sam, man, the things you're saying, like you said, you learned the word mensch, but I just learned what it's like to go to church, because that is preach. That is perfect. Everything you said is exactly right about the historicity and the reason why we have this in the first place. But I disagree on one point. I think Michigan is responsible. Michigan has had opportunities throughout its history to stand up against this, and instead they participated in it, right? They participated in it under Fritz Chrysler. They participated in it during the 70s. They are one of the schools that benefited from having this system where, the only thing you give out is an education, and guess who's got the best education to give out?
Mhm.
And Michigan was a participant in this for 100 years when they could have changed it. And Michigan has a history of standing up against it. Fielding Yost pulled Michigan out of the Big Ten. I know Fielding Yost had some other problems about him, and especially his racial history is certainly not something we're proud of. But he pulled the Michigan out of the Big Ten because they were passing all these rules specifically to stop players from being able to benefit, specifically to make sure only guys who, could get into fancy Tennessee Northwestern would be able to play football. And he said, enough is enough. And he pulled Michigan out of the Big Ten because they were putting these rules down. And it wasn't even about him. They had rules that were going to really hurt him personally. And that wasn't what he cared about. What he cared about was what they were doing to his players, specifically players who would not have had access to an education if it wasn't for football. And that was what the real argument was about. And it changed things. Michigan came back into the Big Ten years later because the Big Ten said, yeah, you know what? We can provide free food to these guys. We can, give them places to live. And then eventually they gave them scholarships, right? These were all fights that they had along the whole way because somebody stood up and said, this is wrong. Not quietly, not under the table like the SEC does it. That's the other way they could do it. They just cheated and didn't care, and the NCAA looked the other way. And that's how black markets always work with corrupt governments, right? But then there were also big schools that people cannot do without, and Michigan is one of them. If Michigan wanted to make a move, they could. And that's still true today with the SEC like grabbing Texas and Oklahoma, and they're talking about, what do you do there? Well, the other schools could all just say, screw you, NCAA, we're out. We're going to make our own rules that make sense. There's always the opportunity to do something right. And Michigan has a position where they could be that school that's out in front of these things and leading instead of just following and then trying to figure out how they can fit it into their, fake morals.
Well, this is my original point, is that pre-NIL, Michigan did have some advantages. One is you go to Michigan, you get a Michigan degree, you've got rich Michigan alumni. Michigan has always been able to sell the long term, your life. What will this impact be on your life? Well, that's kind of not much of a ticket right now in relation to a quarterback, or at least the sales job that a quarterback at Alabama who's never played a game has $1 million. Or never started a game, it's got $1 million. And so if it's the wild, wild west, Michigan can't still play the same game. And I think that Seth is saying they won't, and I hope that's true, but they can't play the same game.
I agree with Seth. I think if there's frustration, it shouldn't be about, the perception shouldn't be that they're doing nothing. They have certainly laid great groundwork for an NIL assault. I mean, you have a marketing person in Sidney Sims. You have people that are versed in sponsorship and representation at the professional level that can really advise and connect young men or show them how to connect anyway with opportunities that could really help them moving forward. But I think what you're getting at is that that big money that pushed the line, sort of Miami, $6,000 per player. Nick Saban is out talking about $1 million for his quarterback. Yeah, man, that attention grabbing thing, like it would be if you had an NIL fair. That's just something I threw out there. But if you had big names doing things like that, if you had Michael Jordan, talking about Jordan Brand in an NIL capacity, which he should do. Unless it's Carolina that they're going against, man, is his first football entity. He should be helping out. He should be helping out. Does William Wesley still live in Michigan West? You should be NIL in Michigan left and right. You should be doing that. They should. This is what I'm talking about. Not reacting, be proactive. And we're going to get into this with the realignment. Because Seth, I think you were on it, man. You were on it. I'm sure Ira brought to you his idea about, hey, man, add some ACC schools as well. That is being proactive. And this is what I think they need to do in an NIL sense. Think beyond the $6,000 deal to every single guy. go along the lines of what they just did out of Oregon and do it even more. Do it even bigger. What I'm talking about is Phil Knight and Tinker Hatfield. Tinker Hatfield was the designer of the Jordan shoe, right? They got to deal with Kayvon Thibodeau. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That is how you should be thinking. Think big like that. Think opportunities like that. And of course, that's an Oregon player that they would do that with. But Michigan, the minute they have a deal like that, that should be on a PSA for come play Michigan football or basketball or any Michigan sport. That's how I think they need to be thinking. And right now, my sense is while they're doing some NIL things, they're doing NIL presentations, they have people that are versed in marketing and sponsorship and all of those things that are positioned to help the student athletes succeed in this arena. Are they, do they want to step out there and start talking about some of the professional relationships that student athletes could have with a Ross or a Page or anyone else that is any other rich alum? I don't think that they want to be doing that as a program right now because they haven't been.
Yeah. Well, obviously they haven't been, or I don't think they have been in the description.
They haven't been, at least not publicly. They haven't been. I'm talking about publicly. I'm talking about being out front with it, putting billboards up about opportunities, right? Because it's not against the rules. You know how I know it's not against the rule? Because there's not a rule that says you don't do this. They're telling you to make your own rules. I say lean into that. Lean into that. This is your opportunity to balance and level the playing fields in ways that we haven't seen in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But I want you guys to dig further into this realignment conversation because you knew the rumors were going to be coming. And the strongest rumor this week was Kansas to the Big. Yeah. I mean, am I the only one? It sort of has my stomach turned. Is it elitist to say, the Big Ten is better than having Kansas be its next move? Is that arrogant? Is that elitist to say? I want you guys to dig into that on the other side and then talk of the meeting between the Big 12 and the Pac-12. I get why the Big 12 would want to do that, but why would the Pac-12 want to do that? What's your take on that on the other side here? MGoBlog Roundtable, Michigan Insider, Sports Talk 1050, WTK, The Ticket.
There's a guy out there, super rich guy from
break. We read the comments. We read them in the break. This guy said, did you even read the comments? Yes, we read the comments, Luke. Who's going to be the quarterback? Cade McNamara is going to be the quarterback. Okay, The Ticket. It's pretty simple and clear. Now, is he going to be the quarterback the whole season? And that remains to be seen. I don't know the answer to that, but it'd take a major collapse. He'd have to come back fat and out of shape, and he didn't work at all this summer.
You'd have to look like me.
No, miss.
He'd have to be me.
he would have to be a guy who did no work at all this summer. That's not Cade McNamara. Now, I think JJ will play. I certainly think that they will try to take advantage of his athleticism to give him some more of their QB run looks. But, will it get to the point where he's so impressive in his time that they don't want to limit him to packages? That could be the case. That very well could be the case. And this is, Justin Shutt is right. He said McNamara until further review. That is exactly right. That is exactly right. Get some other ones in here.
Has Michigan ever gotten through a season without losing their quarterback? I mean,
not gonna wait. Hey, Andy Molson, how you doing, man?
Been a while.
Is Jet Howard a senior this year? Jet Howard is going into his final year, and Jet Howard is a player, man. Jet Howard
is moving up. He just move up the rankings.
Yeah, Jet Howard. I didn't see the final rankings. I think, or the latest rankings. I know he was up in the high or in the low 40s. Mm-hmm. He may be higher than that now. I think that Jet Howard, if he stays on this track, is a 2-and-done player.
He's a 4 borderline. He's potentially a borderline 5-star guy.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
he's certainly a strong 4-star guy.
Yeah, he does not have a left hand right now.
Oh, is that right?
No, he does not have a left hand. Everything goes to his right. He handles it well to be that big with his right hand. I mean, I see a lot of guys that are a lot worse off. About 6'7" guys don't handle it as well as with him in either hand. And he is very adept at getting to the rim to his right. But you get in the college setting, that they're gonna have that scouting report on that, and they're gonna take that away.
Yeah.
So, but he can really shoot it. He can pull up. He can come off a screen. He can. I mean, the dude is he's an elite shooter. He has plus size. He is going to really be lethal when it comes to if he plays with a penetrating point guard. Be a lot of closeouts on a guy like this. You don't want to leave him. And if he ever gets a left hand, which they have to be talking to him about, dude he's big time.
And one thing Michigan has is a penetrating point guard. I mean, between Frankie and Doug, they've got guys who can definitely penetrate and dish for the three. So yeah, that's a fit for certain.
What do you hearing anything about this, Seth?
There are some conversations going on. I think yesterday there was a conversation between the regents and the ticket office about some of the problems that the university has with the things that have been going on with the ticket sales. So we'll see if anything comes of it, but I'm not expecting Michigan to be full this year. And I got a whole big article that I wrote on it that I don't really think I can go through on the radio.
Well, there's a couple things. One is formally Michigan is saying they're sold out for Ohio State and Indiana. Now, how many of those tickets for Ohio State are Michigan fans is another question. Second thing is as of 2 weeks ago, they said they had sold 85,148 season tickets, which is actually only about 7,300 down, I believe, from their all-time high. Which was back, I believe, in 2006 or 7. So the sales are good, but who's buying those tickets?
I think they're talking about ticket pack. I think they're including the ticket packs. I tried to look at the numbers. Yeah, the numbers don't make sense unless they're including ticket packs. And ticket packs include that package that you could buy an Ohio State, NIU, and Rutgers ticket for the price of an Ohio State ticket.
Right, and then right, exactly, and then they dump off the other two to the ticket brokerage business, and so whether those are really going to be seats or people in seats is highly problematic to me. They said the formal statement from the athletic department is that no game, and this was as of about 7 or 8 days ago, no game has more than 5,000 seats available. That 5,000 seats is the most unsold to any game. Again, I'm highly skeptical of what this means exactly. And yeah, you're talking because they're still offering these pre-game ticket packages around. So,
all right, guys, we can attack that here in a moment. We're coming back from break. And stand over here. We got one last polo.
I'll do that right as we come back.
All right, sounds good. We are back live in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTKA.com. Sam Webb, Matt the Miz Mizler on the other side of the glass, the MGoBlog Roundtable. Before we get back to it, Miz, give me the weather report, man. I mean, what does it look like for us the next couple of days?
Well, the fog is lifting slowly, Sam. It may feel a little humid right now, but I'll tell you this, it's mostly sunny today, high in the mid-80s, and it's going to look that way on Friday as well. Showers possibly over the weekend, but Sunday might be a better one for a weekend golfing. Mostly sunny, high near 90.
So if I were a golfer, if I were a good golfer, if I were a decent golfer, if I was even okay, Miz,
you're moving the goalpost. You're moving the goalpost.
Right.
Keep going. You're gonna get to me eventually.
If I even have my own clubs, right?
If I could hit the ball 75% of the time when I swing at it.
Now, look, I have gotten to the point where when I swing, I actually hit the ball. I have gotten that far. So, but this would be a great time, even for someone like me, to get over to the polo fields, because someone more experienced, they just hit the 18 championship holes right away, right? Someone like me, man, I better stop off. They're great practice options. Their driving range, their grass tee range, their short game practice area with bunker. They offer golf lessons, including junior programs for all levels. Of course, if you got a little frustrated or you just wanted to relax and unwind a bit away from the links, they got you covered there as well with the resort-style outdoor pool and hot tub, newly renovated concession stand there. You can get your workout on in their fully equipped fitness center, have classes like Pilates and yoga, and then the fine and casual dining that can't be beat, cozy up inside the clubhouse grill room, and more perks over at the Polo Fields Golf and Country Club. For more on the perks of membership and all the things that are going on at the Polo Fields, go to polofieldccmi.com. Again, polofieldccmi.com. I know this can be a topic every week, right? Expansion and realignment. I am convinced, guys, that the SEC, that Greg Sankey, is far from done. The talk while I was down there was 20 teams, maybe even 24. Preparation. The listeners have all heard this, but I haven't talked to you, my roundtable crew, about it. Seth Fisher and Craig Ross with us again today. The talk was, guys, that he's gearing up for the day when NIL includes TV money.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to have that dollar amount be. Wait, they're talking about 70 million now with Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC. That's where they'll be. You add 4 to 8 more teams, and you're talking 9 figures eventually. And that's probably where you need to be if eventually you're going to start splitting that money with the student athletes, with the
people making the money.
With the people making the money, right?
If you have to pay your labor, this is
right. That part of it you're gonna have to do. So he realizes that that's what we need to plan for. Like, we're making this money now. If we're making 70 million and eventually have to split it, where we're going to be. But if we make somewhere in the hundreds of millions of dollars and we have to split it, at least we wind up about where we are. That's the thought process, the long play for Sankey. So what does that mean? That means that he's going after the ACC, don't you think? I think he's going to go out. He's going to try to peel off ACC schools.
I could see it. I mean, Duke and North Carolina, I think, are more valuable than Clemson and Florida State, even if, football wise, it's the other way around. But I think that this is also an opportunity for the rest of the schools to be like, all right, they want to play that game. We're better at that game.
But you were right. So you were on it, Seth. And so this is why this all plays into this Kansas thing. You came on a couple of weeks ago and you said, forget the Big 12 remnants. You were right. You were right then. You're right now. Forget the vestiges, the cast-offs of the Big 12. You got to think bigger than that. You said go after the Pac-12. Here's the thing for me, and I'm sure Ira mentioned this last week when I was out. I don't want Arizona. I don't want Arizona State. I don't want Washington State and Oregon State. We want the pickings. We want the pick of the litter as far as the Pac-12 is concerned. Go out and get you a Pac-12 division or the 4 Cali schools in Washington and Oregon. And then to your point, the value of those ACC properties, Duke and Carolina, they aren't sexy to football fans. But the alignment with the Big Ten as far as on campus and academic culture, maybe not where they are, they're Southerners, but the campus environments, the academic identity, more aligned with the Big Ten. They're in the AAU, Duke, Carolina, UVA, Georgia Tech. That gives you a presence in the South still. You're able to have that from West Coast, Northwest to West Coast, through the Midwest, down to the Southeast presence. Now you're a mega conference. Now you're able to sit at that other seat on the other side of the SEC and not be dictated to. That's my fear is you stand pat and either the SEC becomes so powerful that they dictate to the rest of college football, or maybe the ACC strengthens. If the ACC adds Notre Dame, maybe they start peeling up a couple of schools, and maybe who knows what the future looks like. Does the ACC come after a Penn State? I'm not saying I've heard that kind of thing, but these are I think you got to start thinking like that if you're the Big Ten, not just a small, like add a couple of Big 12 schools. Think mega conference, 4, 8, 10 teams ahead. That's how I think you got to be thinking right now.
Well, I actually have heard that the ACC is interested in Penn State. But the fact that I've heard it doesn't have any more meaning than the fact that I've heard the Big Ten is interested in Kansas, which makes no sense at all. And in and of itself, I mean, what makes sense for the Big Ten is to advertise itself as a coast-to-coast conference.
Mm-hmm.
They already do that to some extent in their advertising now. They have the one they show over and over on television, which starts out west and goes all the way to Rutgers in the graphic. And I would say if they're going to do anything and it's limited, well, they need to take two schools on the West Coast. And it doesn't, among, UCLA, Cal, USC, Oregon, Washington, two of those.
Can you just take two, Seth? And this is to your point. Don't you have to have a Western division for it to make sense?
Yeah, you got to put a Western division together, and keep in mind that some of these contracts are harder to get out of than others. If say the Big Ten wanted to form a super conference and dump Rutgers, that's really hard to do, right? You have some serious contracts that are going to cost some serious money that are going to prevent you from doing those things. And the PAC has the same issue. What I'm talking about is going back and looking at what was college football great at, right? Regional rivalries, and then you play big national games at the end and the beginning of the year, okay? You can do that without the SEC. The South historically used to be one just mega conference. That's what it was, right? The SEC and all those schools, they broke up into the SEC and the Southwest Conference and all those other things, all right? And the North, we had our little regional divisions, and then we were a major that's what we were. We played the Rose Bowl at the end of the year. And if you weren't in the Big Ten or the Pac-10, you didn't get to play in the Rose Bowl, right? And that was a huge thing because it was it was something that you could only have access to if you went to one of these great academics. So I don't think we can really look at it from a perspective of should we pick off some Pac-10 schools and form a mega conference? You have to go to the Pac-10 itself. And you have to say, I know we don't want Arizona, but I think that's the only way to make it work.
So a couple of things. You make a great and valid point about the money consideration, but I think it's just that. I don't think, after watching what just happened with Texas and Oklahoma, I just don't believe it's the obstacle that a lot of us imagined it to be. You're talking about $75 to $80 million for those schools to get out, and the SEC didn't flinch. Texas and Oklahoma didn't flinch because they knew they had the backing from the SEC, who's willing to chip in, and ESPN, who's willing to chip in. So if it costs them $160 million, it's fine. They're like, "Chump change, we got it," and they're right.
Well, and they think they can get out of it. They think that they can get the Big 12 to implode so that there is no contract and there's nothing. That's part of the underlying conversation going on right now. And I know the Big 12 is just trying to make it, but that's true. They have a point that that ESPN is going to be doing whatever they can to get the Big 12 to break up because it's going to save them $125 million.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you on that. But if they have to pay it, chump change, man. We got it. We'll pay that bill. And I think, again, you see the big picture of what the dollars will look like if you have this mega conference scenario. I think they'll be able to print money. And you're talking about at that point, if there are two mega conferences, those two, so let's say 48 teams splitting all that money. That's not to say that the other schools don't matter, but in this conversation about the big dollars in college football, Sankey is trying to position it where, hey man, they're going to get their share, their half. If you're the Big Ten, I think you need to position yourself to get the other half. And I ultimately believe, I really believe that down the line, either the ACC or the Pac-12, I don't think both of those conferences survive. The Big 12 is done. They're done. The question is, can the ACC make some moves to protect itself from what the SEC is absolutely trying to do? And from the Pac-12 perspective, are they forward thinking enough to say, you know what, we need to have a Big Ten alliance under any means? Or does this meeting we heard about with the Big 12 earlier this week, is that more along the lines of protecting what they have now? So this is the distinction I'm making. The Big 12 just lost Texas and Oklahoma. What's the dude's name for that? That's the commissioner of the Pac-12 now? I can't remember his name. New guy. Anyway,
I don't know.
Pac-12
I'm not pulling up names right now.
Pac-12 commissioner meets with the Big 12 guys. He doing that thinking, you know what? If I don't add an Oklahoma State, an Iowa State, Kansas, these schools that
George,
none of them really move the meter, but I need to bolster us enough, give us another time zone in order to placate
Clifkoff.
Yeah, that guy.
George Klikoff.
Yeah,
that dude.
In order to placate USC, UCLA, I don't want those schools thinking about leaving. And so the way that I protect myself from being Bob Bowlesby is I add these remnants of the Big 12. Maybe that bolsters us a bit. Personally, I think he should be like, hey, I'm going to take my biggest pieces and I'm going to try to get with the Big 10. That's how
to me, Sam, it's the opposite. If the Pac comes in and says, we're taking Oklahoma State and TCU and Baylor, whatever, if I'm USC and UCLA, I'm talking to the Big 10 right away and saying, wait a minute, I don't want to be in there with those meatballs.
So
they don't do anything for us.
I thought the same thing, Craig. So why is he meeting with the
You
Big 12?
You don't become the Pac-12 commissioner if you have skills. Okay, this is a guy who's been railroaded to good jobs and wasn't good enough to actually be in charge of something important, so they gave him the Pac-12. That's how you get a job in the NCAA. That's who these guys are, and that's who we're dealing with. So we can say all these smart things on the radio, but like that's who this guy is. Have you looked? Come on.
So you're saying I'm overqualified to be the Pac-12 commissioner?
Hey,
absolutely. We are all overqualified to be the Pac-12 commissioner.
Awesome. And I'm trying to figure out, like, what sense does it make for the Pac-12 to make this? Because Craig, I swear, I swear I'm like the long lost Ross brother right now, because I thought the same thing. Like, if I'm SC and I see you talking to Iowa State, are you kidding me? I'm trying to get on the next thing smoking. That doesn't make me want to stay in the Pac-12.
If I'm USC, I just say, wait a minute. This Pac-12 TV deal isn't any good anyway. The Big Ten TV deal is really pretty good. I can play Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State as opposed to Texas Tech and TCU and make a lot more money. Do you know what USC Ohio State goes for, in a TV pack? I mean, I'm not even thinking about it. I'm gone yesterday. And so to me, I don't get it. Now, it may just be that the guy at the Pac is saying, hey, we'll talk to anybody.
Okay.
Because the landscape is such that we can't really afford not to be talking to people and to hearing and at least listening to what what they say, and it may be nothing more than that. But
so do either of you guys, starting Yusef, you lend any credence to this talk coming out of Kansas that they are in serious talks with the Big Ten?
I never discount anything, but I think that you always take a call from a desperate man, because you never know what kind of deal you're going to get. If Kansas calls and says, hey, can we put our basketball program in your conference? Okay. Yeah. I don't care. You guys can be a mid-major and everything else, but you want to be a Big Ten basketball school. We'll let you in. Can you start a hockey program? Well, we do that too, right? Like that kind of thing. That you always take a desperate man's call, but you don't. I don't think it's coming to much. I think that Kansas calls the Big Ten and says, hey, can we talk to you? And yeah, you take the call. I think that the Big 12 calls the Pac-10. Yeah, you take the call and you figure out what they want. And if there's any way that, while they're over the desk, you could get something out of it. You don't really think that. I don't think that any of them are thinking in the kind of terms that they have to be. I think you and I are. I think we're all talking about, the future when you're going to have to share your TV money with the players. I think that we're all talking about a future where cable is not going to be directing how everyone makes their decisions and where the money is exactly coming from. The idea is going to be more eyeballs, more people in your stands, more people talking about your football as the real football. I think that if they were smart, they would be looking at an exit strategy for the NCAA where they can get out of all these extra rules. And the NCAA is so poisoned and so messed up. Just leave that. The NCAA is a fine organization for non-revenue sports. And it can function that way. If you want to play big money, just have a freaking league. And they could have a great league, and they could have it be exactly what it always was and what fans always loved about it, which is we play our rivals, we play some interesting schools. I want to visit Washington. I would actually like to visit the SEC.
Have you ever been to Washington?
I have.
Oh, man,
it's gorgeous.
It is.
It's gorgeous.
I mean, dude, if their stadium didn't look like an erector set, it would be perfect. But it's a perfect setting for him. It's amazing.
It's a beautiful environment, and Seattle's a great city. So it's
and USC and UCLA, Colorado. I'd love to go out to Colorado. Boulder's a beautiful town too. Yeah. There is a and they play good football out there too that I think that we would want to watch if we had more connection to them because of that. And I think that that's a natural connection that we have with them. Tacking on Utah, we have Rutgers too. It's okay. We can afford a couple little things like that to save us money if we want to combine. I think that's the future for us, is we combine those and then look over at the ACC and see if maybe we can build Penn State their own little conference on the East. And I think that could be a good future for the Big Ten.
So I'll say this as we got to get out of here. I think there should be an order of operations. So I'm trying to pick off pieces of the Pac-12 and pieces of the ACC. If that doesn't work, then let's do full Big Ten Pac-12 merger. If that doesn't fly, then I start talking to the Kansases of the world, but not first. First, that's not the first move you make.
They're not even part of the conversation. I don't even think that doesn't enter the conversation unless you're forming your own league separate from the NCAA and you want a nice mid-major conference to sit in the middle and soak up some of these teams. Because there's money to be made at Iowa State. It's just not the kind of money that can share revenue with a Big Ten school.
Yeah. Fellas, great stuff as always. Missed you last week. Glad to be back. Do a terrific job. Craig Ross, Seth Fisher, Matt the Miz, and Matt Miz, you've done a fantastic job. You now have a wingman in Seth Fisher. I don't know if you knew that.
I'm glad Seth corrected my wrongdoing, and we got everything under control. So hopefully next Thursday when we reconvene, everything will be as kosher as possible.
Well, Miz is about
to throw a shout out in here real quick. The if you're a Kickstarter backer for our book this year, stand by your email this evening. You might see something nice.
Okay, there you go. All right, folks. We got to get out of here so Miz can flash his great producing skills and get us right into the next program, even though we went late, because Miz can do that. We appreciate you. Back tomorrow here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTK, The Ticket, the official voice of University of Michigan Sports, Ann Arbor, a Cumulus station.
Wow.
Sam, I'm going to grab a recording of what you said there when you're talking about the history and everything like that. That is like, you said it so perfectly too.
Yeah, I'm about to send you I'm going to send you this BE. It's long, Seth.
So. I like long.
All right, that'll do it for radio. And for all those watching on Ticket TV, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk with you next Thursday. Bye.
So do you